Welcome into the Hilltopper Sports Podcast. I am Todd. Along with me, Sean, Ryan. We've got a special interview today. It's a big one. Sean had a big help in getting this one for us. The first non-West Liberty affiliated interview we're going to have on this show.
And he's basically like, it's one of those things where you say somebody's family, but they're not really your family. So he's kind of like an honorary West Liberty guy.
He is from Charleston. If you're on Twitter and you don't follow him, you should. It's at MEC Hoops Superfan on Twitter. Chris Wade, you might see him depending on how often you travel to watch West Liberty basketball games. He tries to come up maybe once a year to West Liberty to watch a game, but it's always fun to get him up there. I got to talk to him a little bit more than I ever have at the conference tournament this past year at West Banco Arena. He's a very easy person to talk to, and even though he'll tell you growing up he was a big West Virginia State fan being from Charleston area, he is not as biased as I am when talking about things. He's very across the board. He likes everybody. He just wants to see the competition that the Mountain East has to offer.
And that's the thing that I really appreciate about Chris, who, before I go any further, I mean, you talked about it, easy to talk to. Maybe the most genuine person I've ever met in my life. Not a bad, mean bone in his body. But I don't even think it's arguable. As far as people I deal with, he knows more about the MEC on both the women's and men's side than anybody I know. I mean, it's because he does his homework. And again, he's not affiliated with the MEC or anything like that, or any school for that matter. He just does it because he loves it, and he really enjoys the quality of competition, and he wants to make sure that the players and the schools and the administrators and coaches and whatnot get their just due. Because a lot of times you don't see that happen in Division II sports. So, I mean, what he does, I'll be honest with you, there's things that we talk about when we're doing a game, Todd, that I've gotten from him, because when he tells me something, I know he's done the homework, and I know he's on the up and up with it.
And that's the other thing that I love about Chris, the fact that you mentioned it too, we're Division II, so maybe the amount of publicity isn't as big as it would be for Division I or professional sports, which I understand. But we're also in the state of West Virginia, where we don't have – we got, two professional sports team, and both of them are minor league between baseball and Charleston. I believe that's still there in Charleston, right?
I believe so. Yes, it is. But they both may be leaving soon.
Yeah, and the Nailers here in Wheeling, and that's been an ongoing thing for the last 20 years. I feel like the rumor that they might be out the door soon, and something always happens to keep them around. But in terms of publicity and getting the word out there about West Virginia sports at any level, it's pretty low. Even with WVU at times, they don't talk about them as often as they should. So it's nice to see that there are people out there from West Virginia making sure that these kids get and these coaches get the attention they deserve.
Absolutely. And there's not a coach, there's not an AD, there's not a player, basically, that Chris isn't on a first-name basis with when it comes to MEC basketball. And he follows other sports because, he did play tennis. But the basketball one is his baby, so to speak. But if you mention MEC, people know who it is because he puts in the work. He's been out there, and he's respected because people know that he does his homework. And it's a situation where he obviously doesn't get paid for it, and he has nothing to gain by it. So I think that those are two reasons really that he is such a respected name in the MEC circles.
Yeah, to me, that's another big one, too. The fact that he doesn't get paid for any of this, and it's for the love of the game. It really is. The fact that he cares that much about it, I think it means a lot to everybody involved that he's just a true fan. He cares a lot about everybody. Like I said, he's not biased towards the Charleston teams or anybody down south. It's everyone. He wants everybody involved. And it's kind of refreshing to see that as well, because when he talks about people, like you and I will debate about certain things, whether it's West Lib Sports or Pro Sports, whatever, we are not necessarily afraid to say some things that may be negative or like, well, they're not very good at this or this team's not good at that. I don't hear that very often with him. I don't think you're really going to hear that from him in this interview as well, because it's all positive with him. He doesn't really focus on anything negative. He just, when he talks about comparing these players like he did in the Twitter poll for who was the best MEC player, it's never negative. It's always the positive things that he puts out there.
And to be honest with you, those people are rare in today's world. And I can just be flat out honest. I don't fit into that category.
Me either.
Because I feel like I'm overly negative at times. But you're right. He's just, and that's his personality. You know, that's just, it's not just about basketball or the MEC. I mean, that's just the way he lives. And that makes him a very fun person to be around because it makes him different in a good way. You always have fun. You always enjoy your time around him. And that's why, you know, when the MEC tournament comes around, I get excited, you know. And he and I will text back and forth, you know, occasionally or send Twitter messages, you know. But about a month out from the MEC tournament, that stuff starts ramping up and it starts to become more frequent. And I just love when he gets to come up here, and it stinks that it's only 1 week a year. Maybe hopefully that West Lib can go on a run again next year and play host to the regional, and we can get him up here more than one time.
Yeah, I kind of joked with him, folks watching this. You'll hear it's pretty much the first thing he says in the interview. The fact that he's from Charleston, I wanted to ask him about food. Obviously, a big thing with me. What did he get to try up here? And my first question was going to be about DeCarlo's, and before I could even ask it, he was talking about DeCarlo's pizza before I could ask the question. So he kind of got that out of the way real quick. I thought it was funny, and I have to respect his opinion. You'll hear it. He's not the biggest fan of DeCarlo's, and that's
now, see, that's the one thing he's negative on. He's negative on DeCarlo's, and I can't stand for that.
That cracks me up. And I asked him, like, did you get to try Coleman's Fish? You know, it's Center Market. It's near West Banco Arena. It's not that far away. He's like, no, I didn't get a chance to try that. So maybe, I don't know if he's a seafood fan or not. Maybe he'll get to try Coleman's Fish next time he comes up.
If you know Chris well, his diet isn't – there's not a lot of variety in it. He's a chicken guy. He's a chicken fingers guy, you know, stuff like that. But it's funny because we've gotten him to try different things when he's been up here. And some of it is hilarious. Like, he's not a vegetable guy at all. Like, just do not put vegetables in front of him because they will not get eaten. And 2 years ago, in the media room, we had him try a salad for the first time in his life. And I've still got – I recorded it because I knew what was coming. And it's still on my phone. You know, he would eat the lettuce. He was like, that's all right. He ate a cucumber. And he was like, oh, that's pretty good. And then he put an onion in his mouth. And all heck broke loose.
Oh, yeah.
Because he loved the taste of it at the beginning. And you know how onions are. There's not much there. And then all of a sudden it's boom. And especially if you haven't eaten them before, it's a big surprise. And I can't even talk about that situation without laughing because it's so funny.
I'll tell you this. Maybe he'd be better off like I am with onions. They have to be breaded and deep fried for me to eat them.
Yes, me too. You know, I'm like that with a number of things. Onions, I won't eat. Like, people put them on hot dogs or whatever, or hamburgers. I don't eat them. If they're fresh, I don't eat them. You cook them, I'm fine. Same with red peppers and green peppers. I think with me, it's a texture thing. Mm-hmm. I don't like the crunch, but whenever like, I'll eat pepper steak and it's delicious. But you know, I just laugh when I think about Chris because the guy is he's so funny, and he doesn't even realize he's being funny. Like, so you know, it's genuine. He's not trying to get a laugh. It's awesome.
And yeah, he gets along with everybody. I mean, everyone I saw him speaking to during the conference. I mean, for years at the conference tournament, it's always been smiles with everybody. So I've got no doubt in my mind that when Topper Nation watches this interview with Chris, they're going to have smiles on their faces as well. With that being said, I talked to Chris for a good while, about 45 minutes or so. So we'll get to Chris's interview. Unfortunately, Sean had some technical difficulties, couldn't get on, but this will not
What
be
else is new?
this will not be the last time we have Chris on the show. So, Sean, we'll get another opportunity. We'll both be on there to get a chance to talk to him. So, with that being said, Topper Nation, here is Chris Wade. And welcome in to everybody in Topper Nation. This is on Twitter. If you're a Mountain East Conference basketball fan, you've probably noticed this guy under the MEC Hoops Superfan Twitter handle, Chris Wade. Thank you so much for being on the show with us.
It's a pleasure being here. You guys do a phenomenal job with basketball and all sports. Y'all's athletic department is amazing, and so it's just a pleasure to be here and talking to you guys.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Even before we started recording, we were kind of talking about, or at least I was talking about teams that I enjoyed. And of course, everyone at West Lib knows I'll talk the Penguins and hockey. It's a rare thing up there, but we talked about how lucky we were as Penguin fans and spoiled to always have the best player in the world for the past 35 years, basically. We are spoiled at West Lib, too, with the people we get to work with, the athletics department for the broadcast side. Rex Lancaster in operations helping us out. Don Clegg makes us sound so smart. All the information he has, I'm thinking to myself, somebody out there is going to see this and think, oh, that announcer's pretty smart. No, that's Don. You know those guys pretty well, and Sean Ryan as well, helping us out color commentary for basketball. Got to hang out with those guys during the conference tournament at West Banco Arena this year. That was a lot of fun. Both sides, men's and women's tournaments, were very exciting.
Absolutely, yeah. I was second time being in Wheeling, and so I've been there the last 2 years. It's good to get away from here. Stay in a hotel and hang out with a bunch of MEC fans and players, and so yeah, Wheeling was a blast. DeCarlos, it was a big topic for me. I'm not a huge DeCarlos fan, so for all you people out there, don't dislike me because of that. But I just wasn't a huge fan of DeCarlos. But other than that, Wheeling was awesome.
I'm not going to lie to you. That was the first question I was going to ask you after you were done with the initial Wheeling talk was, what did you think of DeCarlos? But, hey, I worked there for a while when I went to school at West Lib. There were a few times people from out of town would come in to eat, and I'd give them the pizza, and they would come back and tell me, hey, you didn't bake this pizza. Like, yeah, we did. And so I'd point to the wall, like, read that up there. This is how it's done. If you don't like it, bring it back. We'll melt it for you, and it's all good. We'll be fine. And every once in a while, I'd get the, hey, this is pretty good. All right, thanks. So it's all up to personal taste, and I get it. That's fine. Some people like it, some people don't. It's our weird little Ohio Valley, Wheeling, Steubenville kind of thing, but it's really good. Did you get to try anything else in Wheeling that trying to think, did you get to go to Cabela's, anything like that?
No, I was strictly, basketball all day long, and by the time the games ended late at night, let's go back to my hotel and hang out. And but I will say, every time I go to Wheeling, as much as I'm not a huge DeColors fan, every time I'm in Wheeling, I'm going to get it because it's one of those things. You're there, you got to. It's a specialty, and so I'm not. I mean, it's pizza's pizza. I love pizza, and so I'll be back.
How about Coleman's Fish? That's not too far away from West Banco Arena at Center Market. Did you get to try that?
No, I didn't really try anything but the DeCarlos, and that's usually the last thing I do on the trip. And so of course I got some of the hospitality food, which is different places. But yeah, DeCarlos was pretty much all the stops I made food wise.
Well, I'm glad we got that out of the way because I'm a big food guy. It's everywhere we go. Like, all right, where's a good steak place? Give me something good to eat. In terms of basketball, we'll get back to that in the Mountain East Conference. This past season, it was a weird year because everything got canceled when it got to the regional tournaments. And there were teams on both sides, men's and women's, that had high hopes. And to see that get dashed just hurts for everybody involved. But to know it was a good tournament, a conference tournament, to now look back and say, okay, that was the end of the year, to see how well that went and how well these teams played. I thought Charleston on the women's side had a really good chance to win the conference tournament. I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily call him a sleeper because everybody thinks Glenville and Notre Dame was very good, and so was Concord. It was
Yeah.
that top four was tough on the women's side this year, and just since I don't know if you get to see him a little bit more often since you're down in that Charleston way in West Virginia State a little bit, but your take on what Charleston could have done and some other teams could have done on the women's side in the tournament.
I totally agree. I thought Charleston, actually going into the tournament, I probably picked Charleston to probably win it. I thought they had a really good shot. Becky Burke does a phenomenal job coaching, and they've got a lot of good talent. So I think they underachieved a little bit, especially with their expectations. They had a really good year last year. So I think Charleston, I expected them to do a lot better, but Notre Dame, they had so many seniors, and so I was really happy for them to be able to send all those seniors off on a good note. So, but you're right, that top four was incredible. Concord was really good. I mean, two amazing players they had, and of course Glenville State. That's the mecca of all teams. So yeah, you're right. The top four was incredible. But yeah, I thought Charleston probably should have done maybe a little bit better.
Yeah, and I got a feeling they'll be back. There's no doubt in my mind Charleston will be back. Notre Dame as well. It seems like through the years they've had their ups and downs, but when they're down, it's for a very short period of time. Doesn't matter if there's a coaching change. Doesn't matter if there's a really, really good player or a couple good players that graduate in the same year or back-to-back years. They always find a way to reload. It's never really rebuild. It's reload for Notre Dame College. And there were some up-and-comers, too, in this conference. West Virginia State, now Charles Marshall, that head coach, was at Glenville before. You can see him starting to build that program up every single year. And in terms of West Virginia State, it's kind of on both sides, men's and women's, where that program is just on the rise.
Absolutely, especially the men. That's when I started becoming a fan. I actually went to Washington State, and back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, they were the team to beat for the most years. So, but then they went through a stretch where they just fell off. And but the last 2 years they've been pretty good, and last year was the best year they've had in quite some time. So I think they're definitely on the climb back up, which is good to see. And yeah, Coach Marshall, good friend of mine, he's doing a great job, and they had a lot of youth last year, so those players will develop into upperclassmen now, and so I expect some better things from them. But the West Virginia State men definitely last 2 years have been so much better for them.
Yeah, Coach Brian Poor, he was the man in the conference in men's basketball before Coach Crutchfield, and then things kind of went crazy for West Liv, but West Virginia State has never been far behind. They've been a thorn in the side a couple times, more than a couple times for a lot of teams in the conference. We moved to Concord. Both sides of the ball, or both sides of basketball there, men's and women's. Concord continually gets better on the men's side. Todd May, you lose a guy like Tommy Bolte, it's going to be kind of tough to right away get to that level again, but you can see it. It's there. It's going to happen. And on the women's side, they just continually get better. You hear the big names all the time, and obviously Madison May and Riley Fitzwater, but a couple of years ago it was Emily Booth for me that she was the do-everything player for that team, and she graduates. Well, here comes Maggie Gwynn. And here comes a couple other young players for Concord that, hey, just because Booth is gone, they still have players, and they're still going to be around for a few more years.
Yeah, I totally agree. Kenny Osborne does a phenomenal job there. You see a lot of youth in today's coaching ranks, but Kenny's been there a long time, and he's really the last couple of years they've really been really good. So Kenny does a phenomenal job down there. You're right; they just seem to have players in and out, and May and Fitzwater, great 1-2 combo. But then they had a lot of other players who knew their roles, and so yeah, the Concord women have definitely been a good thing for the league last couple of years. And yeah, you're right with the men. You lose Tommy Bolte, you're going to take a little step back. Same thing happened with Notre Dame losing Voorhees. So but Todd May does a great job there, and they've got a couple guys from what I hear that are coming in this year that they're really excited about. So yeah, Concord does a good job with Todd. He does a good job there. So expect good things from them as well.
And unfortunately, it wasn't very long ago we heard about Urbana closing down and not just leaving them out in the East. They're done for good. It's tough to hear those kind of things. feel bad for everybody involved, the students, especially not just the athletes, but the students that were going to school there. After that, though, the Mountain East maybe have to try to find a new member. Who knows what they'll do? I'm not going to speculate anything. I don't know any inside information or anything like that, so I can't give the fans out there too definite an answer whatsoever. But that's kind of tough to lose and to have a school close just like that because of everything that's going on. We can kind of see it coming a little bit, but they had some good teams, especially women's basketball this past year. Tyra James, and they had quite a few. Sylvia Hudson was another one. Their women's program was getting better and better.
Yeah, it's a shame for you hate to see anything like it happen anywhere. Urbana is actually one of the few schools that I've never been to. So I've seen pretty much every other team visited the campus, but I haven't been to Urbana. But just for the basketball, the whole community, it's just a tough blow. But you're right, the women's team, best year they've had in quite some time. Tyra James, Player of the Year, phenomenal player. And Sylvia Hudson's, she's been phenomenal the last 4 years. So it's good to see her get some success because she's been on some pretty bad teams, but she's a really good player. And the men's team, they had a lot of freshmen, so they were a team that was looking to the future, and so it's just a shame to see what happened to that. And hopefully, a lot of those players can latch on somewhere and able to continue their careers collegiately.
Well, I kind of feel bad. We've been talking about all these teams and all these schools. I've realized we're already about 11 minutes into this interview. We only got so much time to talk, and there's a lot of things we want to get to. Maybe towards the end we'll get back to this, but I want to bring up something that you did that was extremely fun on Twitter. You had the competition, the voting competition, the best players, and not West Virginia Conference history. That's a long, long history, but just Mountain East Conference since 2013, I believe, correct?
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun to pay attention to. Just did things go voting-wise from people out there that voted on your brackets? Did it go the way you thought it would? Were there any surprises for you?
Yeah, it kind of went chalk. I had to make some corrections to it. At first, you know how Twitter polls can work. Sometimes it can turn into a bit of a popularity contest. So I was noticing early on, I was allowing retweets, and you'd have all these people retweeting, and so maybe a couple of matchups in the preliminary stages was kind of maybe a little bit off to me. Then I kind of took the retweets away, and then just kind of kept it with whoever was following me was voting. So once I made that change, for the most part, it stayed for the most part chalk and how I thought it would go. I seeded them. I threw it out there, so got all kinds of feedback, which was nice. It's great to have. Everybody's got their opinions, and so it was good to see these people. So the seeds went for the most part how they were seeded and how they're supposed to. So I think once I took the retweets away, I hated doing that because you like to see a lot of votes, but at the same time, it was kind of getting a little carried away, and some of the results were a little skewed early on.
That cracks me up because I knew it was going to be once it got going, people were going to really latch on and try to get as many votes for everybody as they possibly could. I'm sitting there thinking, because I'm unbelievably biased, and I won't deny it, that's fine with me. I get paid to be biased.
Absolutely.
I'm looking at some of the names for West Liberty, and I'm thinking to myself, man, in my mind, this could be a top 3, all just West Lib. But I got to give credit where it's due. At least in my time of calling games and working for West Lib and getting to watch these games closely, there have been some unbelievable players. Voorhees recently for Notre Dame College, wow. Bolte for Concord, unbelievable player. Wimbush and Bengaya for Fairmont State. And the player that I liked a lot for Fairmont was Vontae Montgomery. I'm not going to say that he was the best player in the conference or anything like that for any single year, but just my personal liking of players and what I see. Vontae Montgomery was a great player in my mind.
Absolutely. You're right with the West Liberty vote. I mean, that was for most teams, you kind of have a feeling of who should get the nod. But with West Liberty, I mean, there's been so many good players at West Liberty. That one was really tough, and I knew it would be. And then I tried to take 3, and with West Liberty, I knew there was going to be 4 because they had so much success, and there could have been 7 or 8. And so West Liberty was a really tough one. Yeah, it's just so many good players. Fairmont State's had quite a few. So we only took one representative from each school, but I think next year we're going to at least maybe add a second one to where you can still have every team, every school in the league had one representative. So we may take next year, we may take the top 10 and then the last four and then add some second people to add to the mix a little bit.
And I'm leaving out names, and I feel bad about it. Wheeling University, I know they're our rival, but we got to mention Haywood Highsmith, another player he made it to the NBA. That's a guy that's and I'm trying to remember, and I feel bad. I feel like I remember who won. Who did win on the men's side?
Bonifant won. Bonifant, he was the number 1 seed. I think he beat Highsmith in the final. Highsmith was the 2 seed. Voorhees was the 3, and I think the 4 seed was Matt Bengaya from Fairmont State, beat out Wimbush. In my opinion, going in, I thought any of the top 3 could win it. Bonifant, Highsmith, or Voorhees. And Bonifant ended up winning it, which was he was the number 1 seed. He kind of won, not easily, but it was probably the final was probably like 58-42, 60-40, something along those lines.
And that makes sense to me. I mean, I guess if you're just going to go based on their college careers and what they did in Mountain East Conference play, that would make sense. If anybody outside of it kind of looked at just where they went after their careers, Seeger's playing professionally still in Europe, but to get a chance to play in the NBA for Haywood Highsmith, that's unbelievable. And I still look at that, and I know everybody thinks it's Division II and Mountain East Conference, and they're not as good as Division I. They're not as good as WVU or any other school in Division I and all this stuff. And maybe that is right from depth, in terms of depth on all these teams. But when you take a look at some of the guys that have come out of the conference and how good some of these players are, it's unbelievable. That's what I wish some of these high school kids would understand. When they're coming out, Division II is no joke. There is unbelievable talent that we get to watch, and we're spoiled at times.
Absolutely. I think of the 14 people made, I think there's been 14 programs. I think of the 14 of the men, I think at least 8 or 9 had played professionally. So that tells you right there, there's a lot of talent. And you're right. A lot of people say, D2, it's just D2. A lot of players, a lot of good players in D2. And for Highsmith, making the NBA, basically 2 years after graduating, 1 year, 2 years, it's just phenomenal. It's just an incredible accomplishment for him and an entire league to have someone like that play in the NBA. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and we had him play in the NBA, and then I feel terrible. I'm blanking on the name. The Charleston football player that got drafted in the 4th round 2 years ago. That's terrible. I can't remember his name, but.
Well, I've got to remember his name. His John Kaminsky. He got picked up by my Falcons. I'm an Atlanta Falcon fan, so if I didn't know that one, then there'd be something wrong. So.
Well, to see him get drafted in the 4th was incredible. And then this year, the New England Patriots in the 1st round from Lenore Ryan took a Division II player in the 1st round. It was the 1st round, correct?
I believe so. Yeah, 1st or 2nd.
It shocked everybody, but there you go. It's a Division II player. You can't, and it's Bill Belichick doing it. So he's the greatest of all time of coaches. So he knows what he's doing. Start paying attention to Division II people.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of fun to see you come up, and every once in a while I'll get to see you at West Lib, whether it's at a West Lib game on the road or up on campus or at West Banco Arena. How often do you get to travel to different schools and see it?
My work schedule, I work at the YMCA, so I run youth and adult sports. So it's kind of difficult because I have my leagues on Saturdays. We have games on Saturdays. So usually when I get to see teams when they come to Charleston or Washington State, a lot of times I'll be off work before 2 or 4 o'clock. So that's my main way of seeing teams is when they come to Charleston or Washington State. But I'll try to make it 1 or 2 road trips a year. I've been to West Liberty for the regular season game the last 2 years. First time I was there was a couple of years ago when they played Wheeling Jesuit, and they had both teams were phenomenal. So I made a special trip up for that. I was at Washington State game last year, so I went to that. I go to Morgantown maybe once in a while. So it's, I think about an hour and a half away. So I try to go up to West Liberty about once a year. Seems like Fairmont State, I get to go to Fairmont State once or twice. A lot of times I'll try to hit the holiday tournaments around Christmas time, see some teams early on. So yeah, for traveling, it's usually about 2 or 3 times a year.
And we know you get to go to the conference tournament for the Mountain East. How often, especially when they were both in they were both in Charleston, did you get to go see the high school tournaments?
Yeah, I've seen every MEC, WVIAC game for the last 18 years. Was fortunate was in Charleston, so I was able to go to all those games. So the last 18 years, I've seen every WVIAC MEC game. Last 2 years in Wheeling. High school games, I go to them. I work for the Civic Center doing press conferences for them. So I've pretty much been involved with the high school tournament here in Charleston for the last 4 or 5 years as well. So yeah, see a lot of basketball in March. Well, until this year.
So you got to see a lot of really, really good talent at both levels, and some you've gotten to watch at both levels and play a Luke Dyer type for West Liberty playing at Clarksburg. Every year he's in the tournament. Now he moves on to West Liberty in the Mountain East. He's there every single year. A guy like Chase Harler and Preston Boswell, getting to see those guys play. So it's always nice to see the West Virginia kids do well and stay in state and do well. It's kind of funny talking to Luke. We had him on the podcast not long ago. I think he is the lone West Virginia native to play at West Liberty. It kind of cracked me up a little bit to think about that. Even I think the coaches, for the most part, Luke might be he and the athletic trainer Jason Coleman from Wheeling might be the only West Virginia natives at West Liberty. But you know what? That's college sports nowadays, and you take a look at West Virginia's roster. It's kind of the same. They had Logan and Chase. Those are the only 2 guys from West Virginia, I believe.
Yeah, you're right. You don't see a lot of West Virginia kids around here. A lot of people, Ohio seems to be a big hotbed. When West Virginia State was as good as they were, pretty much most of their players were from the Columbus area. So yeah, you don't see a lot of West Virginia kids in the conference. But since you mentioned Luke Dyer, I love that guy. That guy, all the West Liberty fans love Luke Dyer. That guy just, he's the heart and soul of that team, in my opinion. He doesn't get nearly as much recognition as some of the other people, but that guy is just a rock solid, and I love me some Luke Dyer.
So we do too. We like to claim that we understand and we get that we don't underrate him. We know how good he is. That maybe those don't get to see him as often, kind of underrate him. And I get it. I've done that as well. Everybody does if you don't get to see somebody play very often. But again, I'm not gonna lie. I'm biased, so no matter what, I'm going to think Luke is the best, and regardless of what anybody else thinks. But what other parts of West Liberty, at least, do you I'm not trying to be arrogant about it, but it seems like West Liberty has had everybody's number for the most part for a long time now, and part of that is recruiting. What do you see as the biggest difference in what makes West Liberty one of the top in the conference?
They've always had good coaching. It all starts with coaching. Coaches are the ones who go out and get these players and coach these guys up. So between Crutchfield and now Ben Hallett, which I'm obviously a huge fan of him, I've always been a big fan of him. And so anytime it all starts at the top. When you have success, players want to go to programs with success. So we start winning a couple of years in a row. You get put on the map, you get played on a national stage. People want to play for programs like that. So that obviously goes a long way. Once you build that reputation of being one of the top programs, people want to go there. So it's a combination of coaching and just the program. And, West Liberty's been, the top dog in the league for many, many years. And, the system that plays a role in it too. It's just a fun system to watch. Everybody gets to play. There's 2 schools of thought. Some people like to play your top 5, and you got 6 or 7. And West Liberty plays 9 or 10. So it kind of goes both ways. But you're going to play a lot when you go to West Liberty.
And I think that is one of the recruiting points. You may, if you're a great player in high school, which most of these guys are, they go to any of these Mountain East Conference schools. You may not get 30 minutes a game or what you're used to playing, but the minutes that you play, they're going to be you're going to be going nonstop and get all the opportunities you can possibly get. Uh, Even with the conference, the success of Mountain East basketball, especially on the men's side, having two teams make it to the national title game, uh, that is huge to me. I know there are other sports in the Mountain East Conference that have gone on to win national titles and compete for national titles, but we're just kind of sticking with basketball in this one. It is so, as again a native of West Virginia, to see those teams make it. And granted, again, the players aren't all from West Virginia. It's not like high school where they were born and raised there for the most part, but still, those are our teams. Grew up watching those teams. We battle against those teams every year, and to see us get represented that well, it's a pretty good feeling. It really is, because West Virginia doesn't get a whole lot of positive media attention, I guess you could say.
Yeah, you're right. Anytime you get teams, to regional level and then advance to the national tournament and make it as far as that as they have, it's just a phenomenal. You're right. The pride is there. Virginia doesn't get a lot of love. So to see teams from here make it to not only the national level but make it super far, it's definitely a huge thing for the conference. And that year window from 15 to 17, that was, in my opinion, that was the best basketball I've seen in quite some time. And it's good to see certain teams do. It's good to see every team do well, but to see 3 or 4 teams in one year have the great success as they have, that's quite phenomenal run right there.
And I have to go back and agree with you on the coaching is a big part of the success at West Lib. It absolutely is, but I think it's been a big part of the success for the Mountain East Conference as a whole on both men's and women's side. You get good coaches into this conference, good things are going to happen, and that's what we've seen time and again for the past. Well, honestly, since 2013, that's what we've seen since the inception of the Mountain East Conference. It's good coaches bringing good players, and it's going to be good teams. And look out the rest of the country, because this conference is battle tested. They play each other all year, and that's also the fun part of it too, because if a team does play each other 3-4 times a year, even if they've beaten the other team 3 times already, you really don't know. You go in wondering, I don't know if they can beat them a 4th time.
Absolutely, yeah. It's good to have depth. If only 1 or 2 teams is doing really well, it makes it a little bit more tougher for the league to get a lot of recognition. But when you got so many good teams competing, which we've had, it's just great. And yeah, I mean, you're right. It's hard to beat. I mean, I would have loved to seen West Liberty and Charleston play again in the regional. West Liberty had some success, and it was 2-1, I think, in the 3 meetings. So you play that many times, you know each other. So it would have been really nice to have seen them play again. I think they had a really good shot of doing so, but we'll never know.
Yeah, I'll be biased in this for regionals. I don't want any conference team to have to play another conference team, whether it's Mountain East, PSAC, or CIAA, in the first round. But after that, hey, this is regionals. It's the best play the best, and I wouldn't lie to you. I would have been very, very nervous having to play Charleston again. It would have definitely had me worried a little bit. You might have been able to hear it in my voice during the broadcast, just a little bit of nerves. I'm just realizing now we got to go back to the women's side for your Twitter contest or the Twitter poll. A lot of great players on the women's side to vote for and to have a difficult time seeding that. I mean, it had to be difficult on both sides to seed those, but women's, I mean, there's just been so many. I can't even, whether it's Paris McLeod, Marissa Brown. I mean, there's all kinds of ladies that you can choose from. How did that one end up going?
Yeah, you're right. That was again for just like the men. Most schools, you kind of knew who was going to advance. West Liberty was by far the toughest. I knew it would be going in. You had 4 All-Americans that have come through West Liberty, and most schools are lucky to have maybe 1. So the West Liberty one was really difficult. Another situation where you could have had multiple people from West Liberty make it, but we only allowed one this year. And Liz Flowers ended up being the West Liberty representative, but that was really close. Kiki Simpson, Kaylee Howe, Marissa Brown, all four of those were incredible matchups. Martha Nagby ended up winning it for Notre Dame. She was early on in the league. She was a 2 seed, and she knocked off Paris McLeod, which was the number 1 seed. Really good close battle. The really close battle was the 2 and the 3 seed. Liz Flowers was the 3. Martha Nagby was the 2. I think ended up being 52% to 48%. A lot of votes. I knew going in that was going to be the matchup that I was kind of looking forward to the most, and it came to fruition. And Nagby just barely pulled that one off, and she beat McLeod kind of handily, probably in the finals. So Martha Nagby won that, which wasn't a really surprise. I've got a lot of Notre Dame supporters. I go to Cleveland a lot, so there really wasn't a surprise. And Nagby's a great player too. So any one of those 3 could have, just like the men I thought could have won it, and Nagby ended up pulling that out.
Yeah, that'd be a tough one again. For me, if I would have to take a look at who I think, it would be longevity for the most part. All of them are great players. Who did it for the longest and who had the most success at doing it? And Martha Nagby, very good choice there at Notre Dame. They've had a lot of very good players as well. I guess more specifically for Notre Dame, what I think of for their women's team recently was injuries that forced some players to maybe not get to the potential you thought they would. But you've got Sena Adachi and Marissa Finazzo is another one that's she got a little bit of injury problems, and boy, when they were both healthy and young playing for Notre Dame, you saw it, and it's thinking this is going to be a scary, scary duo. But I don't think we ever got to see it at what its peak potential could have been.
Yeah, I agree. Marissa Finazzo, that was one of the toughest things was seeing her go down a couple of years ago. You're right. When they first started off, they were a great 1-2 combo and a great team as well. See her go down, and she suffered another injury too. So she went through 2 major injuries. Got back her senior year and played a decent amount, but just never was the same. And she's one of my favorite players. Again, I went to Cleveland a lot. My best friend lived in the Willoughby Hills, and that's where she was from. So it was tough to see her go out on so many levels. But yeah, I know Notre Dame teams have been really good over the years, and Adachi has been phenomenal. And they've got Jada Morone coming through now. So she'll be the next one to be a superstar.
And Sena's sister is going to be there as well. So the younger Adachi will be there. You see stories like that all the time in sports. And unfortunately, those kind of things happen. You can still see, though, Finazzo, when she came off the bench in her senior season, she still had some zip to her game. She still made impact. And I'm happy for her. She at least got the opportunity to do that and finish her career and not have to say, it ended because of injury. No, she was still a pretty good player even after the injuries. Well,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she was. They missed her for a couple of years. That's a good thing about Notre Dame. They've had a lot of good depth, but you never like to see anybody get injured and end their career with an injury. So for her to be able to come back and at least play a little bit and play well. I think there was a game in the MSC tournament. She played really, really well and really helped out the team. So it's really good to see her come back.
Well, I guess we'll ask you for some predictions. Hopefully, with everything that's been going on, we do have a basketball season coming up in the 2020-21 season. Again, I'm going to be biased here on the men's side with everybody coming back, and for the most part, everybody coming back for West Liberty and adding some key pieces as well. I think it's going to be West Lib for preseason at least, which means nothing, but preseason number 1, obviously. After that, it's going to be interesting to see. I think Charleston will be back. Lamont McManus, tremendous player. Dale Bonner at Fairmont State, he's going to get some help too. It's going to be fun to see how the Mountain East Conference shakes out and a young West Virginia State team coming back.
Yeah, I agree. West Liberty would have to be the favorite for sure, to win the title and have pretty much everybody back. I saw some of the people they've added. again, y'all know more those players way better than I do, but they seem like they have great credentials, and of course it's West Liberty. So if they're going to West Liberty, they're going to be really good. So Charleston does lose two tough seniors, but in Rackley and Robinson, but Dwayne Osborne is, in my opinion, one of the best coaches in the league for sure. They're going to be right there in the mix, and I think Fairmont State's going to be really, really good. Tim Koenig is one of my favorite coaches, and he did a really good job in his first year in getting a team that it really wasn't his for the most part. I think they're going to be really good. And West Virginia State, I think they're going to be right there in the mix. They've got a lot of people back. So I think those four teams are probably the top four. And then there'll be some good competition for sure from those teams as well.
And on the West side, start to wonder who it's going to be this year. You know it's going to be Glenville State. Emily Stoller graduates. She won't be there, but it's Glenville. You know they're going to bring it. We talked about Charleston already. They'll be back. Concord still has Riley Fitzwater and a huge supporting cast helping her out down there in Concord. It's going to be interesting to see how things shake out. And again, West Liberty, they lose some shooters. They lose some athletes. They lose some speed in Grace Fodor, the shooter, and Morgan Bruner, the scorer, and just all-around great player in Taylor Johnson. And they lose some depth in Monica Bragg, but they bring in some recruits. They have some young players already there that are coming up. We'll see how West Liberty shakes out. I think they're going to be able to find their identity early, and if they can do that, we'll see how things go for the Lady Toppers. But the top teams in my mind on the women's side as of now would be Glenville and Notre Dame coming back.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think you've got it pegged perfectly. Glenville State, they'd be the pick to win it. They've got a lot of players, good players back. I think Charleston's going to, make a really good run next year. I think they're motivated I don't think they're as happy with the year they had either. So I think they're going to be even more motivated. Notre Dame loses a bunch of seniors, but they've got a lot of good players left. Marone, I think, is going to be a superstar in the league now. I'm curious, sort of like Concord and the Notre Dame men with West Liberty women. You lose Marissa Brown, you're going to take a little bit of a step back. It's hard to replace someone like that. And Kyle Cooper is one of my favorite coaches on the women's side. So I've got a lot of respect for him and the way he does the program. So I think they're going to be back. Give them next couple of years, they'll be back for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch on the Hilltop. Again, we're unbelievably spoiled. I get to go to an awful lot of practices as well to see how this team shapes up. And again, we talked about the women's side with West Liberty's basketball team before, where at least on this podcast, going to practices and seeing the way the record looked this year, and if from just the outside looking in, the way they practiced, you wouldn't expect that to be the mentality or that to be their effort level during practice if you see the record from what the record was the previous two seasons. And but they really did. The Lady Toppers fought hard all season long. The attitude stayed right. The coaches stayed right, too. I mean, it was all around. And we heard Coach Allum talk about it, our athletic director at West Liberty. They just ran into some bad luck at times. And that's kind of what it felt like. Yeah, some of the teams were better, and you could see that. But at the same time, Glenville State at West Liberty this year, the Lady Toppers put up triple digits and gave the Lady Pioneers everything they could absolutely handle. Beating Notre Dame at Notre Dame this year for the Lady Toppers late in the season. That was just super impressive, and it really brings a lot of high hopes for next season.
Absolutely, yeah. They had some close losses, and you're right. Could have had Glenville State won. That was a great game, and to beat Notre Dame. Notre Dame was, I think, was regionally ranked at the time, or I think they were. So that was a huge win for them late in the season. But yeah, I think they're going to do really good. I love to see the West Liberty men's practice. I hear the men practice. I hear Coach Hallett talk about it in the interviews. From what I hear, the practices are just as intense as some of the games are.
Oh yeah, you wonder sometimes how are they able to play that fast all the time in games? Well, that's because that's what they do in practice all the time. And it's also funny. Sometimes I try to get there early. Every once in a while, I get to do interviews a couple times a week with the coaches, both men's and women's basketball teams. and I'll get there early to do the interviews, and it'll be about 45 minutes to an hour before practice is supposed to start. And some of the players are already out there, still in their street clothes, whatever. They're getting shots up before practice already. They don't mess around. It's basketball. They love it, and that's what the cool part about it is. To see, and I think that's at all the schools at this level of college. If you don't love the sports and love the game you're playing, you're probably not going to be there for very long doing it. And I got to assume it's the same everywhere, where these kids just love the game and they give everything to it, and that's what makes guys like us, we want to, what we can do for, we want to give everything back because it's so enjoyable for us. It's so entertaining for us. The fact that I get paid to call some of these games is unbelievable to me. So I can't take anything for granted.
Absolutely. I mean, you've said several times you're biased, and you should be. I mean, and you're extremely blessed. I mean, you're exactly right. I tell Sean all the time. I mean, Sean just now. I mean, he's been involved with West Liberty for several years, and for him to be able to call games too now, it just makes things so much better when you go to a place that everyone loves what they're doing, especially for you all at that level. But when you're at a program like West Liberty, who you're going to have some success, you're going to see great players, you're going to see great teams, great coaches. That makes the job, I would imagine, for you all so much better and so much more enjoyable. And you say you're biased, and West Liberty has got a lot of players over the years who've done it, and they've earned everything they've got.
They absolutely have. They are very nice people as well. They try to give me credit, good job on this, just like you did, and it's very much appreciated. And I try to tell them all the time, listen, I just give back and give back what you guys give, because I know how it was growing up playing sports at any level. I don't care if you're in your backyard playing basketball. You wish you had that announcer or somebody saying, "Oh, look at that shot," and when you can get to that level and you deserve to have that because of how hard you've worked and how good you are, I'm going to give that back. I feel like the emotion is a big part of it for the fans, for the people. That's what sports is about, to bring out the competition, but the emotion as well. Not so much the bad emotion, keep that stuff at home, but healthy competition this year at Fairmont for the West Liberty games. Their band was chanting at Dalton. You know what? That's college sports. That's what it's supposed, and it was all in good fun. And the West Liberty crowd kind of gave it back to their band at one point. Their band director gave them a clap, clap back to the West Liberty fans. Like, all right, like that was good. I enjoy. Like that's the whole point of this is a competitive, but not hatred rivalry.
Absolutely. I love a good pep band. I'm like you. Anything that adds to the game, and atmosphere, I'm all about. I miss. I know when the tournament was down here in Charleston, West Liberty would always come down with a pep band, and it would always be one of my favorite things of the tournament. I love a good pep band, and so anything that adds to these games, and West Liberty and Fairmont State are two of the best teams in the conference. They have been. There's a reason the fans get behind the community, and that's great to see. There's nothing, I mean, not worse, but you hate going to games and no one's there, and then I'm sure the players feed off that support too, and it's just a great to see, great atmospheres throughout the league.
Absolutely. So I'll be honest with you. Fairmont State is making it tougher and tougher for me to have even a little bit of actual dislike for them. When I first started doing this, or when I first got to West Lib as a student, maybe I did. But it's with the people that they've brought in, getting to know the people and working with some of the people there. Chris Thomas, their SID. And now their coach, Tim Koenig, like you said, great guy. And their players getting to, not that I know a ton of them, but a few. Talked to a couple of the people that around there. Plus, their colors are the same as my high school colors. So they're making it more and more and more difficult to have any kind of real dislike. It's just competitive rivalry now.
I totally agree with that. I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm a West Virginia State guy. So over the years, I've not liked Charleston for, they're a rival.
Natural.
But over the last couple of years, I mean, Dwayne Osborne, I love Dwayne Osborne. He's one of my favorite guys. Not just a great coach, just a great, great guy. Devin Robinson was one of my favorite players, was probably my favorite player in the league this year. So I'm right there with you. It's hard for me to dislike Charleston now. I used to dislike Charleston a lot. And now I don't. I like Charleston. And you're right. It's just the people. You get to know these people, and you get to find out. Oh, these guys are great guys, and it's just a great rivalry.
I left out another part why I can't dislike Fairmont like that anymore. When Joe Mazzola came on the staff and then became head coach, it's like, all right, I was at WVU as a student when he played. I still remember him being injured and learning to use the other arm as his primary hand. And it's like, you know what? How can you not like that guy? And just everything he did for the Mountaineers and being a WVU person, just a West Virginia guy. Uh, you got to love Joe. And I couldn't help but respect him. Like, okay, there's another guy, another reason to not dislike this team. Uh, it just makes it more and more difficult. I kind of like that, but at the same time, I guess we gotta find somebody outside the conference to hate. We gotta find somebody. We gotta come together as the whole conference and figure out who are we going to hate as a team. We can figure something out. Just don't hate each other in the conference.
That's exactly right. That's good philosophy to have. So yeah, there's going to be some school in a PSAC that we can just dislike, and so
we'll just pick a name out of a hat. It doesn't matter. You know what? We'll just say it now. We'll go with Shepherd since they left. We'll go with Shepherd in the PSAC. We'll just random. We'll pick them. That's fine with me.
Shepherd it is.
Chris, thank you so much for being on with us. Sean Ryan was supposed to be on with us, had some technical difficulties, couldn't get on. We're going to have to do this again. We'll definitely bring it back on for another podcast. And maybe once we get closer to basketball season, or once basketball season gets going, if we can keep this going, if I'm not too busy once that starts up, we'll get you back on and talk more Mountain East Conference basketball.
Absolutely. I've had a really good time. Again, I'm not just saying this because I'm here. I mean, you guys do a phenomenal job from the top down. I think you all in Fairmont State, and you mentioned Chris Thomas. I think you two do a phenomenal job, both programs. So it's been a pleasure to be on. And West Liberty has been so great to follow over the last, many years. And so I look forward to coming up to a game hopefully next season.
Well, thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate that so much. I know everybody at West Lib does. Everybody gets along with you from West Lib, so we all enjoy when you do come up. And again, hopefully next time Sean will be with us. I'm going to edit this part because I'm blanking here at the very end. So, yeah, little edit wave so I know to edit this part out. But, Chris, thank you so much for being on with us. We'll get you on again sometime soon. Topper Nation again, Chris Wade. Your Twitter handle is at MEC Hoops Superfan.
That is correct. So definitely enjoy being a part of the league. It's a great league to be around, and so thanks to all the players and admin and just everybody.
Yeah, give him a follow, folks. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. He's got a lot of good stuff about Mountain East Conference basketball. Again, Chris, thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time.
Sounds great. Have a great day.
And a big thanks to Chris Wade for coming on and being on the interview with me. That was a lot of fun talking to him. As I told him on the interview, he will be back, and I feel like we could have at least a couple more episodes talking to him. We need to get him back on either right before the basketball season, during the basketball season, after. It doesn't matter. We might get him on multiple times during the season because he'll have a lot of information for us.
Absolutely. And like, I don't know, the invention of what we're doing here on these podcasts is just awesome because it enables us to talk to people like that anytime we want to. You don't have to wait until they're in town and then try and squeeze something in, so Chris is one of those guys that you could just sit and talk to for hours.
Yeah.
And you might not be talking about anything of substance, but he's just one of those guys that's easy to talk to. You just the back and forth. It's fun.
It's kind of what I caught myself doing during this interview. It went from me trying to be at least a little bit professional during the interview to, okay, now this is just a conversation and people are going to end up watching this. So if there's anybody out there like, this doesn't seem quite like an interview because at points I kind of lost that. I couldn't help myself just talking about basketball with Chris. It was stated during that Martha Nagby, again, the women's champion on the side for MEC all-time greatest player. Again, not West Virginia Conference. That's more than 100 years worth of history of basketball. But since the formation of the MEC, Martha Nagby won the women's side. Seeger Bonifant from West Liberty won the men's side. Not that both sides were unbelievably stacked, but when you talk about the men's side on that as well, we talked about the women's in the first segment. The men's side, Seeger Bonifant, number one. Then you got a couple guys from Fairmont State and Bengaya and Wimbush. And was Voorhees the fourth?
Yeah.
Okay. Those were the top four. And it's hard to argue with that as a West Lib fan. And I told him that, you saw it in the interview. I'm biased. So that top four probably would have been all West Lib for me just because of where I went to school and who I got to watch on a regular basis.
Yeah. Obviously, those things are all opinion-based. I think, and I've heard this argument used against Seeger, and I don't believe it in that regard, that Seeger was just a product of playing on good teams. I honestly don't believe that, and that doesn't come from a biased standpoint. But I follow this stuff pretty closely too, and I think Matt Bengaya absolutely was. And not to say he wasn't a good player. He was a very good player. But to get in the upper echelon, I think he benefited from the talent around him quite a bit. For whatever reason, he never really did it for me. He was tough against West Liberty as he was against everybody else, but to me, he and Seeger are, they're not riding the same. They're not riding in the same car,
I'm with you on that because when I look back, I can remember Bengaya. I'm pretty certain it was his final year at Fairmont, playing against West Liberty, and we had a freshman defending him in the post, where Bengaya was not twice his size, but a good bit bigger than the defender in the post for the Toppers. Again, he was a freshman, Clay Gioze. Clay did a great job of defending Matt Bengaya. I don't know. I can't say, but Seeger versus Clay or Seeger versus anybody in the low post and all the moves that he had, I don't know. I don't think there's a real comparison between the two. And that was Bengaya's game. He wasn't necessarily the three-point shooter that Seeger was. Now, I think Wimbush was better than Bengaya, but again, I didn't get to see enough of their games to really make an educated statement on that. But just between the games that I saw them play against West Liberty, I thought Wimbush was up there. And again, we talked about Haywood Highsmith from Wheeling as well, making it to the NBA. And I get that outsiders looking in to say, how could you not vote for Haywood Highsmith to be number one? He made it to the NBA. And I have a difficult time disagreeing with that thought. But if you're just going with what they did in college,
exactly,
as Mountain East Conference players, it was by far Seeger.
I mean, I think, and that wasn't specified,
Mm-hmm.
But I agree with you. I think it's based on if you're saying who was the best MAC player, well, then you're talking about what happened within the MAC confines.
Right.
And don't get me wrong. I mean, when I say that Seeger and Bengaya weren't close, if there is a difference between Seeger and Haywood, you're like right here.
Yeah.
Because what Haywood was able to do and what he and a couple other guys, the Pat Mosees of the world, the Seiferts, they took Wheeling to another level. And Haywood was always the driving force. It was such a pleasure to watch him. But, yeah, I agree. If anybody wants to say Seeger was just a three-point shooter, and for the first year, maybe year and a half, he was. That's it. But anybody who wants to question his credentials, all you got to do is throw in that national semifinal game against Lincoln Memorial, where he scored every single way you could possibly score and had 44 points. If you watch that and still disagree, well, maybe we shouldn't be talking.
And when you said the argument that, Seeger was a product of a good team and things like that, well, if you really want to look at it, at the time, Wheeling and Fairmont State were highly, highly ranked in the country as well. So they had unbelievable teams too. You can't really say that about one of those guys without saying it about the other as well. It's just
it definitely helps.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong, but I was there and saw Seeger. I mean, they came at 1 point short, but I was in attendance that day and saw Seeger put that entire team on his back.
Mm-hmm. And it wasn't the first time he had done it either. He'd done it several times throughout his career, especially the last couple years of his career, winning National Player of the Year both years. That's I don't know if that's going to be done at West Liberty ever again, having a guy win National Player of the Year 2 years in a row.
Well, I've learned quite a while ago that never say never with this program.
I like that. I mean, you can always look to the future and look for the upside and just wonder when's the next great one going to come about for West Liberty. And you know what? I feel like it's every year there's another one. Sometimes it's the same guy. We talk about Dalton quite a bit, but there are multiple guys on this team that could have the potential of winning Player of the Year next year in the Mountain East Conference. And we kind of talked about that as well with Chris, that next year you got to think West Liberty's got to be at the top of that list preseason poll again.
I would think so. And expanding a little bit on what you're talking about the next one, that's one of my favorite things. Like, I try not to do too much homework, like, at this point with the incoming class. Now, don't get me wrong. I know these guys and what they've done. But part of the fun for me is going to the ASRC that first time and watching these guys in action, and then being able to look and say, oh, that's the next one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I did that with Seeger. I've done it with Bryce, who I think he's the next one. I think is Bryce Butler. I think he's going to go up big time. And it'll be interesting to see this year who it's going to be. Now, I've missed on a couple of them too. And a guy like Dalton, he's gotten here based purely on hard work. I mean, I don't think even he would dispute that. I had heard that he was going to be good, that once they got him into the program, they were like, wow, you know, this guy might have – and this was – a lot of this talk was during his redshirt freshman year that he was sitting out. Or, I mean, his redshirt year. So he was sitting out, and, you know, everybody was raving about him. And I'm looking at him like, really? That guy? And then he gets on the court and he can do everything. It's just unbelievable. And he's one of those guys that every coaching staff in America should look at and tell guys, watch what this guy does. He is a self-made All-American. Because is he the most skilled kid? Not even close. But he makes up for that with his hard work, his determination, and his refusal to lose. And I probably have more respect for guys like that than, you know, guys that were just naturally gifted with the talent.
Yeah, I mean, Dalton definitely came in as maybe not quite like the Yankees giving Mickey Mantle the next number in succession with all the other Yankee greats from the past, but giving him number 5 that Seeger Bonifant had right before he got there. And it's kind of funny. I wonder if they did that on purpose, or if at West Liberty they really care about numbers at all, or who had them, and here's the next available jersey number. But it seems like West Liberty also, it's every single year there's a guy in the recruiting class that could be the next really, really good one. And more often than not, they still are really, really good, even if they're not I feel like we're talking about the Matrix or something, and here comes Neo in a basketball uniform. But if you just get the talent in, and we've seen it time and again, the way Coach Howlett recruits, he brings in the best talent he can possibly bring in. And when they come together, look what happened quickly this year with a lot of new faces on the team. And it's like they never skipped a beat. It's like everybody came back from the previous year when most of the team was new.
Absolutely. And the thing with that is, obviously, the talent is undeniable. But this past year speaks to me about the quality of coaching in this program, because it is not easy, especially when you're talking about a program that is in the upper echelon, the elite of D2, where everybody who comes in as the guy from his last stop. It's very hard, especially in a short amount of time like it was, to get everybody to check their egos. And from everything I've seen in and out of the program, it was almost automatic. And these guys really bonded quickly. And I think that is partially due to the fact that Ben and Mike and Coach Huffman, they look for a certain mindset. All of these guys out here, they just want to win. That's it. They could average 3 points. They could average 23 points. They just want to win. And that's special.
It absolutely is, and that's what creates these legendary programs. And I think for us right now, West Liberty is a legendary program, at least around here for the home state of West Virginia and the people from the Northern Panhandle. But hopefully, in a short period of time or over the course of time, West Liberty becomes known as a legitimate, probably is already, but for everyone out there across the country to think Division II basketball, West Liberty, and it just goes synonymous.
Absolutely. And I've, from going to the different tournaments and the different Final Fours, Elite Eights, whatever, West Liberty's a household name. It's not like they show up there and everybody's like, well, who's that? West Liberty, never heard of. Like, coaches in the big-time programs other than West Liberty around the country know who the Hilltoppers are, and they know what they're going to get when they come up against them. And I think that's really cool. That's the point where your program sells itself, and that's when people want to come be a part of your program. And for me, whenever I was writing, I always made sure that, especially in situations like that, when you're out there covering a tournament away from home, I always made it a point to spend a little bit more time with the opposing coach, with the opposing players. Because for me, I know what my guys sound like. My readers know what my guys sound like. My readers know what they're going to say. For me, when I'm reading a story about my favorite team, I want to know what the other guy thinks about me. And whenever I would talk to people, it wasn't coach speak. It was very detailed, very appreciative of what they've done. And I will tell people right now, I will put my neck on the line, and I know people get frustrated because West Liberty's been so good for so long now, but they haven't found a way to win that big one. I'm telling you, it will happen in our lifetimes. I say that, and I honestly say it without any doubt, if that's even possible, because they're just too good. The system, the people, the facilities, the attention to detail, everything's right there. You just need a little luck as well, and they haven't had that to this point.
Well, with the quality of that basketball program, it really makes us on the TV side. We get an awful lot of compliments from everybody in athletics at West Liberty, but a big part of that is the effort that they put in as well, and the hard work that we know they put in on a daily basis. And for us, it feels like, listen, they put that much hard work into it. We've got to make this as good as possible because that's what they deserve. They put the work in to make this as if it was a Division I program or a bigger program that should be in Division II. We've got to do our job and make it seem like that we're a little bit better than most around too, because they deserve that quality of broadcast. And the more you see it, there are players coming from further and further away in the country. Now we've got one from Illinois coming in this year. Those are families that may not get to watch or come to all the games and travel that much. I mean, it's a pretty long distance. So, and it feels good to be a part of that team, to let the families and parents and friends and everybody see these guys play from far away.
And to further illustrate the point, and I'm glad you brought that up, to further illustrate the point about this program being known on a national basis and the respect that it has gained, you just talked about the young man coming in from the Chicago area. Sight unseen. Never was on campus. And he said, all right, coach, I'm coming. That tells me all I need to know. And from a parental standpoint as well, because to a certain extent, even though Ben's just in his early 30s, when these kids are away from home, he's a father figure. He's the dominant male role model. And for someone that far away, for their parents to just be like, you know what? I've read enough. We don't need to come to campus. I trust you. That's big time, and that cannot be overstated.
Well, I had a little birdie tell me that another big point of why the recruit came to West Liberty was because he watched Topper Station, one of the broadcasts, and the color commentator on there for the men's basketball. I heard it was some guy named Sean is the reason. So,
yeah.
With that said, a big thanks to Chris Wade for being on the podcast today. He will be on again at some point in the future. Hopefully next time Sean will be on there too, so Sean can kind of bask in the glory of getting our first non-West Liberty interview or affiliated West Liberty interview on the podcast. It was a fun one. Thank you so much for helping get Chris on the show and contacting him. But the next time we do this, it'll be even better. Promise.
Well, the next time we do this, speaking of promises, I promise that I will have a haircut and my beard will be trimmed, neither of which has been done in over 2 months. Enough is enough.
Oh, you're getting to look more and more like Ben Roethlisberger, and I don't know if that's a good thing or not. If you could throw like him, all for it. But if you can't, I don't know if you.
I'll take his bank account.
That's fine. Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to look like Ben though. Look at me, and I'm saying stuff. But all right, Sean, thank you for being on the show again today with us. Again, big thanks to Chris Wade, Topper Nation. Thank you for watching another episode of the Hilltopper Sports Podcast.